And now, ladies and gentlemen, the pièce de la Résistance. It's my great pleasure today to introduce my predecessor, Lloyd Waddy. Lloyd Waddy was the first national convener of Australians for Constitutional Monarchy, and his contributions, both on the record and both in what he had to do behind the scenes, will demonstrate to anybody that his heart was absolutely committed to the cause. As I say, he was the first convener. He brought in, as Julian emphasised, he brought in that sense of amusement, that sense of pleasantness which has marked our movement. It never had that brittle edge which Malcolm in the Australian Republican movement seemed to promote. And I'm told on one occasion Lloyd was explaining to Malcolm that people came into ACM, many people came into ACM who obviously didn't have many funds, and Lloyd said, well, we can bring them in, and they give us $5 a year, and that's wonderful that people who don't have any money are prepared to do that. And Malcolm's comment was, well, we couldn't afford that at the Australian Republican movement. I suppose if you have candle-lit dinners with candle in five-star hotels, that's what happens. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my great honour to introduce Lloyd Waddy.
Well, Professor Flynn, thank you very much for that kind introduction, and I would only say that ACM has been stunningly, stunningly lucky to have all you've done for it since it began. He never wavers. He writes to my wife every morning, and I haven't objected. And there is so much to do. And Jai, you're doing a fantastic job. Absolutely fantastic. It's not for me to hand out plaudits, but Doug Southern and I, who are original members of it, Philip Gibson, who has funded so much of it and done so much of it himself, and Deborah Foster's here, who's come from Melbourne, but previously, and previously of Goulburn, then previously down the south coast, never saw me without giving me a rocket to get on and do something. It was fantastic. You epitomise for me what ACM's about, someone who's dedicated wherever they go. And it is just wonderful. I won't speak of others, but when we started off, it was a real challenge. We had virtually everyone against us. The Labor Party were bound. They decided to get rid of the Queen without a debate. And they decided they'd do it by 2000 without a debate, because it would be humiliating for the world to come here for the Olympics and find we had a Queen. Well, I heard that on the air, and I was really angry. And I walked up from the Domain to Phillip Street, where my chambers were, and I ran into Peter King, who was state president of the Liberal Party. Now, that's not how I knew him. I knew him because I'd spoken at his wedding. And I congratulated his wedding that he'd turned up, because he had a habit of going to the wrong place at the wrong time. But I said, look, I mean, frankly, who are these people? They just decide they'll tear the guts out of the Constitution, which was spent 1,000 years building up, on the basis of a factional deal, so the left can be the president and the right will do this. This is ridiculous. I'm really angry. Anyway, having said that, I went off to work and I never thought about it again. I got off my chest. On the Sunday, I was up seeing my children at boarding school in the Southern Highlands. And it was a very extraordinary sort of reaction. They were quite popular. My wife was popular. I thought I'd been popular. I was being shunned. And I said to one of the teachers, "Have I done something wrong? What's going on here? Read the paper." I said, "I don't have the paper." "Well, get a copy." I thought, wow. So I went and got a copy of the paper, and there it was, headlines, "Move to dump Queen." And it ran down one column, then it ran down the next column to the front page. And right at the bottom said, "A committee has been formed, including Lloyd Waddy." But what was above that was a committee had been formed by the Liberal Party to oppose it by Peter King. And I therefore understood why people had misread it and so on, that they'd come round. Pardon me. And later on I said, "Peter, I never said I'd go on a Liberal Party committee." No, he said, "but I knew your views." No, I didn't act quickly, they might jump the other way. So that was real dedication to the Liberal Party. But without him, I wouldn't have been there. And then, of course, we had a meeting. It's the only time I've been to Liberal Party headquarters in 20 years, and maybe 30. And who should be there but Lazarus without a bypass? And John Howard and I had a bit of a chat, and I said, "This is just nonsense. I mean, if this is going to be done, it's not a political matter. This is a really fundamental matter for all Australians." So we decided then that it really wasn't a thing that the party should get involved in. And I thought, well, you know, there are two things about publicity. People say, "King's a fink, the king's a fink, the king's a fink, the king's a fink," and the king does nothing. It dies. Unless the king comes out and says, "I'm not a fink." Contrast, drama, make a headline. I thought, oh, well, I think we'll just let this go by. This is just nonsense. Anyway, I kept a good eye on it. I just thought it was ridiculous. I mean, that was it. That was the only debate. They agreed on the floor of the House of the Labor Party conference to swap presidents or some jolly thing with Barry. I was going to say Barry Humphries, but Barry Jones. About the same shape. But and he was a Republican. I didn't mind them having the view. I didn't mind anybody having the view. Some of my best friends turned out to be Republicans, which is about like saying I left my... well, I won't say that. I don't think you want to know what I left in the brothel. But, you know, basically... it was extraordinary. Anyway, then the next thing we had, two people came out, which I thought perhaps wasn't the way to go, on a really deep political debate. One was Dear Bruce Ruxton, and he used to appear with his parrot on his shoulder. And while it was lovely, him saying that everyone should be flayed alive who thought they were Republicans, I didn't think it was going to get far in persuading the people that it was a serious issue. Anyway, I thought, it's a free world, he can do that. And then Fred Nile came out, and he said they were all traitors and they should all be put on Pinchgut. Well, Pinchgut's not very wide, and certainly if they were going to put the Labor Party there, I don't think it would fit. But anyway, I thought to myself, you know, this is, they're not taking it seriously. This is a really serious thing. Because our Constitution, the Queen is part of our Parliament. The Parliament of the Commonwealth of Australia is the House of Representatives, the Senate and the Queen. You can't just take a third of your Parliament out and say, we didn't like that bit. What are you going to put in its place? It's just extraordinary. And we're a federation. We're a federation. I didn't realise until I read Anne Toomey's book, I was going to talk about this a bit later, if I get to it, but it's so late in the afternoon. What you need is a cup of tea, a Bex and a good lie down. But with all the states, they are constituted as states, proper states. They have the Crown and the administration. Without the Crown, or the Crown's representative, you can't have a state, the High Court says. So, if you're going to change it all, you've got to change 7. The Commonwealth, plus the other 6. No one, as far as I know, has worked out how they're going to do that. I think they're hoping that if they tell the Queen good-bye-byes, she'd say, well, I won't do any work in the other places. Well, plenty of young children will go on like they did in 1680? 1688, where they just went down 45 people till they got one they liked. That's when the people took over the crown. They just said, this top 45 are out. We'll take this one, Queen Anne. Or the subjects of the Sophia, who was the elector of Palatine or something. Wow. Better take the President of the Queen's Club. Anyway, it seemed to me that unless you were really going to rip up the Australian Constitution, if you were going to do that, you'd really have to seriously think how it was going to change. Because the states are independent within their sphere, and no matter the fact that the Commonwealth's got hold of the taxing powers, the states are still sovereign. And there's a lot of protection in that we have 7 different elements where people can go in and tell the truth. And unless one party controls every parliament, we have a lot of freedom of expression. So, with all that going on, we waited, and then a few of us got together, and we still waited. And eventually, monitoring it, it seemed to me that they were getting away with blue murder, and we had to do something. And we gathered the people together that Gillian told us so eloquently about. And Doug Sutherland's here, remembers everything that happened. What a loyal, wonderful man. He was sacrificed, Labor Party, so they cut him off at the next pre-selection. Leonie Kramer, head of the university, cut her off in her prime. They went through the lot as they could go through it. Myself, I was threatened. If I didn't desist, be no more briefs. There weren't. Well, Australia's worth more than that. One thing I would never give in to, and that's blackmail. Another thing, no one's going to tell me what I do. And I dare say if we become a republic, I'll become a monarchist again and start doing that. I mean, we are free, and we ought to remain free. And part of our freedom is that everybody's entitled to speak and have their mind in a decent way. And on one occasion, I was standing with one of our main financial supporters, and I was having a drink with Malcolm Turnbull. Now, some people can't stand Malcolm Turnbull, but he's been a friend of mine. I've known him for years and years and years, not on the his house, my house basis, but he's extremely Australian, extremely successful Australian. He's a gentleman, and he has a different view than I have. Well, that's democracy. That's what I'm fighting for. And one of our chief supporters came over to him in a social situation and said, "You're a disgrace." I said, "Are you talking to me?" He said, "No, I'm talking to Malcolm." It's a disgrace. How dare you come here having views like that? I said, "What views?" He said, "As a Republican." Well, I just saw red. I said, he's got every right to have the views of a Republican, and I'd fight to the death for him to say so. If he's right, he wins. If I'm right, I win. But we're not going down the path of people can't talk about it. Well, I lost a very good supporter, but I really believed it. The ABC rang me one time and said, "Mr. X has just become a Republican." I said, "Oh." "Yes," he said, he's on your committee and he's just become a Republican. What do you think of that?" Well, I said, "I'm very interested to know about it." I said, "What a fun pity he couldn't ring me." "No, he's been trying to get you on the telephone, he can't get you." "Oh, that's funny, you got through quite well." And he said, "Well, what do you think about that? Is that the end of the monarchists?" I said, "No, it's the beginning." I hope a lot of people listening to this will change their mind, probably 2 or 3 times before it's over, because I want them to be convinced. I want them to think it through. And if I'm wrong, don't make a mistake. But if I'm right, have the courage to stand up for it. So he thought I'd surrender immediately, but I didn't. I rang the guy. I said, "Hello, Lloyd Waddy here." "Yes." I said, "Oh, the ABC's just told me you're having trouble getting on the phone. Mine seems to be working. How are you?" He said, oh. I said, "I hear you've become a Republican." Yes, I have." I said, "Oh, congratulations. You'll be much better over there. Do tell them if you're going to leave them, though, won't you?" Good. I mean, we are Australians, first of all. All of this is about Australia. It's not about... I withdraw that before I say it. It's not about saving the monarchy or saving anything else. It's about us. How are we best off? How are our children best off? And I think we're best off under the best constitution we've got. It is extra. If the English had gone down the idea of federation, they wouldn't be all having this sort of wars on the left of them, wars to the right of them, separation over here, separation over there. Anyway, if Scotland leaves them, we're giving them Tasmania. If we can pay for 600,000 people to not cut down trees, I reckon they deserve a break. So really, what we founded was a very rational movement. I think I could honestly say, and unless my memory's gone worse than my wife tells me, I don't think I ever lost a moment's sleep over this campaign. I don't think anything ever unfazed me, because I believe it's right, I believe it's proper, and it ought to stand up to security. One of my staff came on one occasion over this and said, "There's going to be a scandal in the paper. Are you involved in it?" No way, but I might be dragged into it. Well, I said, if you're not involved in it, carry on. But it might injure the monarchy. I said, if the monarchy is injured in some way like that, and this led to the fall of the monarchy, and it's that feeble, good riddance, we've found out it's hopeless. Now get back to work. I mean, it is a robust institution. And what is the alternative? I'm sure you all watched that wonderful man Fry. Yes, and you all want to send him your diets, I know. But he got off a plane here the other day, not Christopher Fry, what's he called? Which was Stephen Fry. And he got off the plane from London, you know how you feel again here. Someone shoved a microphone up and said, "Oh, this and this and this and this." This only about 6 months ago. And said, "Do you think Australia should be a republic?" Honestly, I've never actually thought of that. But I love Australia, and from the times I've been here, it seems to me you have a local government that you elect, and you have, I think, state governments that you elect, and then you have a federal government that you elect, and most of them have two houses. And then, would you really want another election to elect a president? I mean, it was a perfect comment, wasn't it? And he was really just an intelligent man from outside, hit with a question when he's got jet lag. What I understand, it's Malcolm's latest thing, is that we're going to have an elected president. Now, Malcolm and I discussed that on one occasion. I don't think I've disclosed any confidences when he said, "You know, this Kerr business," and I'll come to that in a minute, I was going to get back to that for a bit of fun. This Kerr business, he said, "You know, when that happened, the Governor-General's power was too slight. It was too slight. He had to be careful what he did," and we'll go into that in a minute if there's time. And I said, "Well, you really want to strengthen the position?" "Oh, yes," he said, "you can't have it where it might or might not happen, or he can be fired or something in a conference." "And what about you?" I said, "Me, I'm a Prime Minister's man. I think the Prime Minister's man is exactly the way to go. Just go to America, where you've got a president there for 8 years, or 4 years, and Monica Lewinsky intrudes herself into the Prince Harry photos. No, I got that wrong. If that happened in Australia, we would have had a new Prime Minister the next morning. The Prime Minister only holds office when his colleagues support him. I mean, the technical thing is he's appointed by the Governor-General, but we've got an incredibly flexible democracy that can react to anything. Like that. Margaret Thatcher. Oh, great I am. Out. Her colleagues had had enough. A certain Queenslander, I can't use his language, but wakes up and finds that a Welsh miner's daughter has replaced him. And we have great flexibility. America is stuck. And while they can control the parliament and get the money, they can govern. And of course that's the key issue, isn't it? They must be able to get the money so that they can govern. And that's where we are, the Democrats. It is our government. We elect it. And if all of us vote the wrong way, well, that's tough. Wait till the next time. This is a wonderful, wonderful democracy. And we need to preserve it. And what would happen? What would happen? John Howard, probably one of the most successful prime ministers, eventually lost his seat. He got voted out with minus 2,000 votes, and before that he'd held it by plus 2,000 votes. Just imagine if we had an elected president and, what shall we say, 12,000 voted, 12 million voted, and 8 million voted for the president. And the Prime Minister goes in there and says, I think you should go now. The President says, you must be joking. What's your majority at the moment? Oh, 2,000 and fading. Well, mine is 8 million. Mine is 8 million. I'm very, very popular. Is that what we want? We don't want a system like that. Ridiculous. Plus, all this nonsense going on in America while they vote for their president, throwing mud at each other for most of the time. When do they ever govern? There's 18 months going on getting elected, then there's 18 months trying to work out what you promised, and then there's 18 months going on. Is it time to stop? Because I'm almost got to my topic.
Go on.
You what?
Go on.
So I just want to say that to see you all here today is the most wonderfully encouraging thing. Firstly, you're taking it seriously. And you're not taking it seriously because the Queen likes scones, or the Queen has a corgi, or she has well-endowed grandchildren. You take it seriously because it's part of us. I can't understand. I used to say to Republicans, look, if a 70-year-old granny sitting in the back of a black Rolls Royce, waving a jewelled hand like that for 3 days, every 3 years, upsets your sense that you're an Australian, please do 2 things. Vote for a Republic and go and see a shrink. All the Queen does for us under the Constitution, the executive power of the Commonwealth of Australia, our power, is vested in the Queen, so it's hers, but only exercisable by the Governor-General. Where's the threat in that? Where is the possible detriment? Do you feel worse off? It's absolute nonsense. And if you take it out, who are you going to give the executive power to? The Governor-General himself? Oh, that's lovely. And then you look at the next item to be worried about in our Constitution is the High Court. No one's gone down this path yet. But the High Court, you can be appointed as many people as you want at any time you want. And you only need a majority of 1, as they had in South South Africa. Old Julia Stone used to tell us about that. For apartheid, they only needed one extra vote. So what we are doing is fundamental. It is sensible. It is not about the Queen or the Windsors. They are well able to look after themselves. I adore the Queen. I think she's fabulous, as I thought her father was fabulous. What a man to lead the free world, and that wonderful wife he had. I mean, where else in public life could you find someone who for 60 years has been subject to the press? 60 years, and not a foot wrong. Not a foot wrong. Harry's put something else wrong, but I think he's going to get more votes. He's human. He's human. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to have been asked to come here. I can't tell you how pleased I am to have spoken so long on my introduction I can't give you my speech. Nor can I resist telling you how lucky you are you're not getting it. I was going to tell you when I was with Sir Roden Cutler, but perhaps I better not. So thank you so much for inviting me. Congratulations to the organisation. Congratulations to Wagga. I came down after 20 years because I couldn't travel around much when we were really stuck in the depths of it all. But we really, really appreciated what you did. And we really, really appreciated. What we tried to do was to free up every group. And when we were running it before I became a judge, and I did nothing about it, but up till then, we formed no republic groups in each area. And they were autonomous, and they could do the right thing. And my God, they did. And you are amongst the best of them. Thank you so much.
Would you take a few questions?
This man...
You use that one.
This man said, well, I take a good question. I know he's married. And so am I, at least I was when I left Sydney.
Is there somebody? We have about 10 minutes for questions.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd have got another 20.
Who's first?
I just really would like to make one comment. There's been no mention of Kerry Jones during all this AGM. I know we all know who Kerry Jones was, but I must say that after the referendum results came out, I'll never ever forget the interview that was done afterwards between Kerry Jones and Malcolm Turnbull. And I'll never forget how confidently and wonderfully that Kerry Jones presented herself and the referendum result. I think it was just amazing. And how fortunate we were to have had Kerry Jones along with all the rest of you to do the hard work.
You are absolutely right. And only last Friday, what's today, Saturday? No, Friday week, I took her mother and her to lunch with my wife, and at the appropriate time, I said, this is just an intimate group, but I want to say, I want to propose your health, Terry. Kerry, put your glass down, because what you did for ACM and what you did for Australia was absolutely phenomenal, and what she's doing now for the Constitutional Education Fund Australia, CEFA, which I support, and that's the one that just puts the Constitution as it is absolutely phenomenal. She has given her life to it. So many people came to me and said, you must get rid of Kerry Jones. We don't like the way she talks. We don't like the way she's not making it intellectual. We're not liking the way she's not talking about the law. And I stuck with her 1,000%, saying she's not talking to you. She's talking to the lady doing the ironing in Armidale. She's taken it out of the hands of the lawyers and the suits, which Michael Kirby and I, so on, were in, to the people. And no, I would pay the greatest tribute publicly or otherwise to Kerry. Incredibly loyal, incredibly difficult, I don't know whether the person will be here, but when we ran the rally for Government House, the press asked me the night before, who will be there? I said, well, I will be with the principal. And I'll be marching for the gates of Government House to Parliament House to protest. I had no idea how many people would be there. We had no security, no organisation, we just did it. About 20,000 people turned up. If you see the photograph, it just takes the whole of Macquarie Street and people trying to get on. The trains were coming down the North Shore, they couldn't stop at the stations. There was no more room on them. And Kerry organised all of that. At the end of it, a gentleman came to me and he said, I'm really, really worried about this. I'm really, really worried about this. And I said, what's your problem? He said, there are buckets being handed around and money put in there and no one's counting it. Well, I said, it will be counted. It will be. No, he said, I'm really worried about that. I said, anything else worrying you? I've just run a $20,000 rally, 20,000 people rally. He said, yes, there's lots of other things I'm worried about too. I said, come with me, I'll go down to headquarters. I very rarely went to headquarters. I let Kerry run that. When I got down there, he said, yes, I can't stand Kerry Jones. I don't like the way she runs this place. Oh, I said, well, hang on, I'll get her in. So I said, come on, Kerry, there's a few criticisms here, come in. Well, she's still reeling from the 20,000 people, which takes a lot of organising. And anyway, he gave me a serving on all the things wrong with Kerry Jones. And it was one of the most delicious moments I had with ACM. I said, is there anything else she's done wrong? Oh, yeah, she didn't do this, that. I said, oh, good. Now, what about something else? No, he said, that's about it. I said, are you sure? He said, yeah, I'm sure. Good, I said. Well, then, you'll just leave now, will you? And he said, if I go, I'll take my wife with you. I said, everything's worth a bonus. Goodbye. I mean, when it's all said and done, I didn't mind him having the view, but to run down a woman who had actually just done the biggest rally, I would think, there's ever been in Sydney that wasn't organised by the unions, was just extraordinary. So I shouldn't tell that story about Kerry, but she'd swear to it because she was the only other person there. But no, she did a fantastic job. Yes, thank you.
Well, what a touching and moving speech from Lloyd there. I know we all enjoyed that. Lloyd was attesting to the fact that ACM, of course, is a very diverse organisation. We're made up of very different individuals. As our charter says, you know, we're from different races, different religions, different backgrounds and so on. But we also have a very significant grassroots support. And I can attest to that. I'm always humbled and always recall this one very sweet lady who, on the two cappuccino system that Philip put in place, this lady gives a very calculated and specific amount per month of $4.16. And to me, that's not an accident. The advertised amount is, well, look, could you consider giving us $5 a month, which Philip attributed to being 2 cappuccinos, but this lady gives $4.16. So we have the support at any level that someone can give us. And of course, there are those who give a little more where they're able to, but we accommodate everyone. And as Lloyd says, you appeal to the heart, and then money in some instances will flow. And that's something that differentiates us from the Republicans.